I'm Nicola Talent and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Men always has been the baseline of humanity. And that's why nearly every problem we can name, whether it's pedophilia, whether it's anything else, school shooting, whatever, all of them are in a direct negative correlation with masculinity. As masculinity plummets, all this garbage is going up through the roof. Is that a coincidence? Absolutely not, really not.
I think the biggest mistake Andrew Tate has made was going and believing Romania was going to protect him. He's definitely got the wrong impression there. I was reading a piece in the New York Times about how Romania was desperately, I think they're partly in Europe, but not totally.
They want membership. So
they want full membership.
They're going to play ball with the UK, or not the UK obviously, but they're going to play ball with everyone else.
Yeah, because years ago, going out there on a people trafficking case, we were met by the police and they couldn't have been more helpful. They're military, they're police. And they were even back then, we were talking back, maybe it was 2012 or something. And they were so helpful because they wanted to be seen to be proactive, working with other police forces and swapping intel and information. It was a people trafficking case between Ireland and Romania.
Yeah, they have certain judicial standards are a big part of being accepted into the EU that they'll have to meet, that they'll have to meet those criteria before they get fully accepted. So
it's been really interesting the last couple of days as regards Andrew Tate. He's done a load of interviews and actually what's ended up happening is that the charges have finally been brought. These very serious human trafficking charges against him have been brought. We'll get to that. But I think firstly, just in case anybody doesn't know who he is, Daragh.
So many people don't know who he is.
Seriously?
Genuinely.
Well, is he not the most infamous man in the world?
Most Googled.
He was the most Googled for a while, but I still think, I was saying that I was coming in to do this pod and a few people I know said, who is Andrew Tate? He's in. So I get that he's the most Googled, but there is a whole portion of the population out there who don't have a clue.
Who are what? Our age? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, because teenagers definitely know who
Most
he
definitely.
is.
I think from 30 under, you're very familiar with who he is, whether you love him or hate him.
Yeah.
He's a Marmite character, obviously, and we'll get to that. But no, there's people who work in different spheres. Now, I've got some pals, say, in the financial sector, for example, and they're just not into the celebrity world. They had no clue who Andrew Tate was when I said I was doing this podcast.
Right.
Yet, he claims to be the most Googled man in the world.
You hang in very high places. I'd say all our mates would know who he was.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I feel the imposter syndrome, I
We
guess.
sort of have, we definitely have friends in lower places than you. I can say that.
Yeah.
For sure. But anyway, he's a former kickboxer, UK-American background.
Yeah, he was brought up in the UK and brought up by his mum. His dad left him. His dad left when he was a teenager. He was a very tough dad, had a very tough upbringing by all accounts. And a lot of this is lobbed at him when people are trying to excuse his misogyny and his behaviour and that he was always trying to plumose a very tough talking father. Now, the mum and the dad split up, and then when the mum got together with someone else, this new man is described by Andrew himself as a bit of a pansy. Right. So Andrew's upbringing in his formative years and his teenage years with his brother Tristan, he had this tough talk and this dad who was training him and teaching him combat and teaching him how to fight.
Where was his father from?
He's an American. He's actually, he's an American, and he was also a chess. I don't know if he was a grandmaster, but he was a very talented chess player. That's how his father kind of made his living. He was ex-military, and he was very much into a kind of a manly macho thing. But the father's kind of a complex character as well, I would say. In that he used
spoken about him in the recent interviews again, funny enough, about that discipline thing growing up.
And he was bringing them around chess tournaments a lot, but he was also from that military background, his father, as an American. So he was raised in America initially and then ended up in Luton.
Somewhere in England, I can't remember.
It was Luton, because Luton, of course, is the home of various far-right activists.
Including Tommy Robinson.
Tommy Robinson.
Who are arguably, some of the most Googled people in the world end up in the middle of Luton, which is
isn't
maybe
it?
unexpected.
But so he built up this persona in the background, and he built up these beliefs that he didn't have an opportunity to kind of share them initially. He was a kickboxer. It's kind of like one of those sports that is no doubt very skillful sport, but it doesn't carry the kind of the popularity levels or the fame levels that you'd have with boxing or even now MMA, as we know. So despite him making his way through the various weight divisions and doing pretty well, his record is very good. He is a good kickboxer. You have to hold your hand up to that. He kind of only became famous when he started getting onto social media. He started to...
Well, he ended up in Big Brother first, didn't he?
Oh, he did get onto Big Brother, but he was invited on because he had this growing influence on social media and became pretty well known as a result of it. But then Big Brother brought him on, and not the celebrity Big Brother either. It was the regular Big Brother Light.
And what year are we talking about now? 2012, I think.
Yes, 2012, but he was taken out of that quite quickly. I think it was day 6, as soon as all the old quotes started being dragged up, and I think social media caught up.
But there was also there was a video of whipping a young lady, and that was really why he got...
I think the Sun approached the Big Brother makers, and they felt they were left with no option but to remove him from the house.
Even though he subsequently claimed it was a consensual video and there was nothing untoward about it.
Which he's used that. I mean, he uses those words consensual a lot in defense of a lot of things.
So what sort of stuff was he talking about on, around this time, I suppose, before and after the Big Brother thing?
Well, he's got this Hustler University, and he's got this. He tries to create communities where he kind of mentors young men to become better in themselves, and in doing so, he's trying to bring them past this idea that men and women are equal. He doesn't believe in that. He is clearly misogynistic. He craves money and fame, and he is willing to do anything to get it. And he's not like a rent-a quote like you get with some people where he just wants to get court publicity for it. You genuinely believe he believes what he's saying, because it has been so consistent for a 10-year period where he honestly treats women like commodities. He kind of puts them in the same bracket as cars or watches and stuff like that, and he has no time or respect for them. So he's built up this weird kind of cult-like following amongst, I don't know how to the young. I mean, certainly in America, he's got a huge following. There's young kind of men who are disenfranchised and possibly incels, and they don't have any other way out, or they see him as this kind of picture perfect, Instagram perfect individual who has women constantly, cars. He's got this really rare Bugatti, $5 million car. So he lives this high lifestyle. He flaunts it. Mm-hmm. And these individuals around the world, mainly in America, some in the UK, Eastern Europe, he's got this big following, and they have just put this vile man on a pedestal. And it's so sad to see that this individual has become like an icon for so many people. And
so why is he an icon? Like, is it just like, like he does have a philosophy, like it's a libertarian philosophy, is it? Like being, so what he's really saying to young men is that, if you work hard and, you grab the wealth, you're an individual, you're not part of this matrix of things. And, that if you work hard and, you have this traditional family life where you're in charge of your home and you're in charge of your woman, and that wealth is there to be taken and that the system is against you. So, like, sometimes I do think that...
He said to them as well, really, though, that, it's often the woman's fault that she's raped.
It is not only, they're saying as well, what he's really saying, which is that this is why he appeals, is that the system is gamed against you as a young man. And that is very seductive.
That central area, is it, of that central sort of belief that the kind of the young white guy is
the real
underdog nowadays.
Is the real victim. Yeah. And you see, this is, it's a philosophy that's, you can feel the anger and the hatred, I suppose, towards women in it. But it is also, I think, slightly more, it's replicated through politics. I mean, it's replicated in people like Donald Trump. It's replicated in other areas where we see it ourselves and in our own society, where this sense of people, you know, this sort of nationalistic sense of people being left behind. And this is a growing trend across Western culture. And he's got in on it on a trolling level, really. I mean, he's like, you know, it is bite-sized for thing, and it's seductive to young men who feel disempowered as they.
I kind of think you're right, because he's certainly more of a role model than the politicians, for example, who are spouting similar messages. He's got this, he's buff, and I said
promoting this lifestyle, isn't it? It's very
but you're right. There's a growing feeling amongst
questions about the money he has. By the way,
of course,
you have a look at the investigations that have gone, particularly since they moved to Romania in the last 6 years, and he claims that he owns casinos and all the rest of it. There's just there was a very, very in-depth investigation in the New York Times as well, where it was discovered that the only place his name shows up is this kind of like local, almost Bray like, slot machine sort of little, like just one little room as opposed to.
Is his great, like he's a spoofer, like is he?
Oh yeah, he is.
Like he's
definitely a spoofer. Like you've got and by the way, sorry, just before we go on, the 2016 was Big Brother, not 2012. So it just shows as well, like that is only how quick exactly. Yeah. How quick he became mad. Like, did Big Brother launch him?
Yeah, being removed like the way he was definitely catapulted him into another
sphere
realm. Absolutely,
he was someone who was kind of agitating on these social medias. He was saying controversial things. He obviously had caught the attention of Big Brother, that he was going to be somebody that would go on and maybe cause a row and all these things these reality shows want. But Big Brother launched him into a different sphere.
Definitely.
And it catapulted him into the status of victim, which is a funny thing that these guys always adopt, and which Donald Trump, we hear it now. We saw this week we had Donald
Trump. Victim of the mainstream media, you mean?
Victim of the mainstream media, of the establishment. We had Donald Trump pulling both of those cards. We had Boris Johnson resigning from Parliament, saying, I'm a victim of a witch hunt, victim of the system, victim of the media. And Andrew Tate is the same. So after Big Brother, he kind of got this, I'm a victim of this system, and look at how they've tormented me and punished me.
And he talks about, like all great conspiracy theorists, they're doing this on me, and they have done that.
Yeah.
And they want you to believe this. They want you to think this way.
Yeah.
Ever asked who are they? He doesn't ever answer that. None of them properly.
He says the Matrix.
Oh yeah, the Matrix, of course.
Which is everything.
Which is basically the world the way they want it to be.
Yeah. The system.
Yeah.
So it's it is replicated. Then it's just you see that Donald Trump and that, and funnily enough, like the other parallel with him is, do you remember Trump University, that it ultimately went bankrupt and was ultimately the source of many court cases? Like, he is this thing, Hustlers University, Andrew Tate. I mean,
you tell us about that, Daragh.
Well, it's actually it has now become defunct.
Yes.
But at the time, it was one of these subscription model style kind of communities. I don't even think there was physical meetings.
No,
there was all online.
There was. I think if you paid the ultimate whack,
the gold premium status,
you got to fly out to Romania.
You got the meet and greet. But yeah, it's creating this community where they're offering everything from financial advice, as Niall mentioned earlier, but to things like flirting with women, how to get a woman.
Do you know what your first line is
to a woman?
Yeah.
What?
You're beautiful.
Okay,
that's.
Straight
almost sort of cultish slightly then.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. And he was targeting individuals who needed someone to idolize. They didn't know where to look. It was like this disenfranchised individual who couldn't look upwards towards the government figures that they were above them. It was this guy on Instagram and Twitter and social media who, as I said to you, flaunted this incredible lifestyle, was spouting such utter rubbish, but it was an extreme version of probably what most of these followers believed in, but it was enough to keep them interested and clinging on.
But the teenage kids that followed him, they can't have a belief system before they're approached by his belief system. They're kids in 14, 15. They can't have a properly structured belief system. And here, even in the schools in Northern Ireland, they actually had to kind of have conferences as such to kind of reach out to the kids to explain to them, Andrew Tate, this is not a good belief to have. I mean, the education authorities had to come together on that. So those kind of kids, they've no proper structured belief system.
But I mean, it's a social media thing where if you spend too much time on social media, you'll start to believe.
Of course you will. That's what I mean. But he's not challenging anything with them. He's giving them the starts of their belief system.
The day is never explained, as you said yourself. Like, it's all kind of vague. It's
all vague.
Bold statements.
Yes.
That are enough to keep these individuals, whether they're 14 or they're 24, and maybe up to the mid-30s. I would like to think above that you grow you learn some logic and you figure out that this guy isn't for real. But it's everyone who is vulnerable and impressionable and sees this and hears these wide sweeping statements without the minutiae and the important facts, and they fall for it hook, line and sinker.
And they don't have the ability to question. Perhaps the brain hasn't developed enough for the the questioning mind.
Well. Whatever about what he's saying, they see, and it's always complimented by him with his muscles and his women and his cars and his house, and whether he owns those cars or houses or not.
This is success.
Debatable. It's potentially fake, but it's what they see as, oh my God, I want to be like him. Like, there's a touch of I know Dan Bilzerian is a much smaller version of him and certainly not as controversial, but this guy kind of created this persona online where he was always seen partying, playing poker and always partying, and it's kind of been since revealed that a lot of that was fake as well. Now, he does have some wealth, of course, and he is a good poker player, but a lot of that was fake. It's just this persona that they put out on social media, and Andrew just caught a little wave back in 2016, and it was at a time when people were just looking for something to cling on to, and they just ran with it. And now he's...
So what happened? What happens with the women that follow him? Because, I mean, the women follow him in their droves. Apparently there was Irish influencers online even after his arrest in Romania last year saying that he was a great guy and that they weren't doing interviews with him, but they were just backing him. So women came in their droves too, and this is really what's landed him before the courts in Romania.
It was I think they described it as a lover boy scam, didn't they? Where he was recruiting women, contacting them on social media, leading with "You're beautiful," getting them over to Romania, and then running a webcam business from his compound that he was living in, and that webcam business was, kind of. Half X-rated, but then also hitting the clients with sob stories and looking for big wedges of money, and that's really why he's run afoul of the criminal justice system. That has to be a finite amount of women that went physically to Romania and ended up behind a webcam or in front of a webcam. Even like there were women following him, millions of women following him and backing him. What's happening there? Well, I think sometimes. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of complicated because, I think that he there are people out there of a conspiracy bent. I don't know if you saw today that there was this statistics from the Guardian about how many people believe in conspiracies, including stuff like COVID was fake. I think they said 30% of the UK population believe it. So he's managed to come across with this stuff on social media, and some of it hits home and some of it becomes notorious because of maybe statements about misogyny and stuff like that. But other things, he's putting out other bits of philosophy, for want of a better description, and it strikes home with some people some of the time. A thing about not being, being separate from the government, being standing on your own 2 feet and all these types of things.
Do you think that stuff is actually attracting the teenagers, or is it more basic with the teenagers? No. Is it that more basic idea that the man is the guy with the big fast car and that the woman is dressed in a particular way and is attractive physically? Is it that basic with the teenage girls and the teenage boys? Or are they actually engaged with government and with,
I think you still see a portion of females who would be happy to be his plus one and be on by his side, and that's the sad truth. I mean, it's sad that blokes want to be him, but there's girls who want to be with him, and I mean, they want the easy way out. It's a perceived luxurious lifestyle on yachts and in mansions, and I do think that women are following him to be part of that lifestyle as well, not necessarily as the alpha male role in the relationship or with their core group, but to be part of it in some way. I mean, women are as impressionable as men are at a certain point.
Teenage girls seem to be so complex these days. They seem to be far more complex than ever before. They're sort of like wanting to be intelligent. They really want to be intelligent. They want to be bright. They want to be, hitting the top of the class. And yet they present sometimes in a way that doesn't say that about them. You know what I mean? At a particular time in your teenage years, which is when a lot of these kids are following the likes of Andrew Tate.
But I wonder,
they're very mixed up because of social media, and the boys, because of the amount of pornography and that they're taking on their phones and their smartphones, and how early that's all happening for them. These sort of ideas of sexuality are developing from without any control system whatsoever.
But I'd say, like, a controversial thing in that, like, is he that much, like, do people just want to watch him because he's saying controversial things?
There's definitely an element of that.
Or do they actually take it in and believe it?
It's
Like,
a bit of both,
is he, like, we're talking about him on Crime World, right?
Yeah.
And, like, that's probably where he deserves to be. Like,
Yeah.
he's a small-scale scammer.
Yeah.
Is he not? Like, he's ripping people off, what's it, 40 quid a month to join Hustlers University. Ridiculous scams, get-rich-quick schemes, really. And sometimes, like, are we overstating the risk of him? Because do teenagers not just look at him and think, there, he's being funny, and look at him being outrageous?
Some
But
do,
they-
I'd say.
I
I mean, this is the
many
thing.
do, I
Like, he has millions and millions and millions and millions of followers. They can't all be with him for the same reason.
No.
There's a load of different complexities that people are following him. Some people definitely are watching him because he's quite fascinating to
Yeah.
watch, and there's no doubt about it. Some people are watching him for his political beliefs, his religious beliefs,
Yeah.
which have changed significantly, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then you do have, I mean, his whole philosophy on that beyond old-fashioned way that
Yeah.
the woman's place
Yeah.
is in the home, and that the man should go out and be this alpha
Yeah.
male, bringing in the
bringing in the meat
food
and bacon or
over
whatever.
over his shoulder with his loincloth. But I mean, that, like, all those different reasons are why people have. He didn't just hit one wave. He seems to me to
But
have hit
is it not funny, though, in a
100
way,
waves.
to see, like, the BBC are treating him like the greatest threat to humanity, and he's treating himself like, I'm the biggest steal in humanity.
Yeah.
And really, is he just a two-bit hustler, as they call him in America?
Well, I do think he's caught a bit of a wave amongst not just his followers, but in the media circles as well. Like, you can see these big podcasters who are going after him,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
looking for the big exclusive, or they're talking about his first live when he comes out of house arrest being the biggest event in social media. Like,
Yeah.
they're already predicting that and what he's capable of saying. Someone did an interview with him the other day, but they recorded 15 hours and they only put out 4.5 hours of it. Like, that's goes
We're
to
going to
show.
listen to a little bit of that stuff because I think it's quite important to get a little sense of him. Now I'm going to I was up to all hours last night watching it, so I obviously have sort of become one of these. I'm one of
You're
the
one of the 12
specs,
million?
the
Yeah,
millions,
yeah,
one of
see,
the millions, right?
exactly.
But there was a couple of interesting aspects to it, and it was an unedited 5 hours. 5 hours.
Is this the BBC one?
No, the BBC one
Patrick,
was
what's his name? Patrick.
the
something or
the
other.
BBC Value Attainment is what it's called.
Valuetainment, yeah.
Valuetainment. It's this YouTube channel. I've never come across this guy before,
heard him this
but he's
morning for
clearly
the
a
first time.
friend of
He
his.
is.
They're in
They did an
cahoots.
interview 9 months ago as well, yeah.
So he did an interview with BBC, and they sent out a female interviewer. I'll get her name now when we're talking, but she approached him. They went out to his compound in Romania, and the first question she asked him was, "Have you raped anybody?" And he's abhorred by this. He
Yeah.
cannot believe that the BBC treated him like this when they were so gentle with Philip Schofield. But actually, as you're watching it, you're kind of, you're obviously, I think he was actually more so what I found interesting at the BBC interview. I don't know whether you've watched it or
I
not.
did watch clips of it. Yeah.
But you can just see and feel the disdain he has for a woman asking him
Yes,
questions.
yes.
And I think that's his biggest problem in that interview. He's leaned on, she asked me this first, and she shouldn't have
Yeah.
said this to me, and the BBC
Yeah.
put up the lights and they did this and they told me that there was
Savile
all these interviews, but actually this is the way it happened. His problem is she's a woman.
Yeah.
And his misogyny is absolutely
Did
seeping
you
out.
notice one of the first things he says to your man, Patrick Bet David, in this interview is how
Yeah.
he took down the BBC. He was like,
He believes he's taken
he's
down the BBC.
totally spoofing his way through this.
But where to start with this, because it's so long, but just a few little things, because we've talked about Trump and the way he talks, and it's that kind of way that he starts a sentence with, I am this, I am that, I am. And it becomes sort of this mantra. It's like as if it's a kind of preacher.
Yeah.
And that's the way he talks. He also talks incredibly fast.
Yeah.
If we just have a little listen to this, you get an idea of it.
And jail as a whole, I mean, there's so many stories I can tell. There's so many different ways I remember it. There were times I laughed. I will sit and say some of the best days of my life were in jail.
Get out of here.
Yeah. And some of the worst days of my life were in jail. But there were days where me and Tristan, when we were finally in the same cell, there's times we laughed like we've never laughed before. I'll sit and admit that's absolutely not really true. I feel like if you're going to be the kind of person who strives for an exceptional life, which is what I am, I think I'd be a coward if I said I want an exceptional life, but I only want it to be exceptional in a good way. I don't think that's genuine. I want an exceptional life. And exceptional means away from the norm.
Calling himself exceptional is just the beginning of it. He's talking about his time in prison there with the brother Tristan. And it's intriguing because he speaks about this relationship they have. He's the older brother. He speaks about how their father reared them, and if they went into conflict, the father would lock them in a room for 4 hours and make them look at each other, so they became a tribe. They became this sort of, instead of being locked into a room, they never fought in front of the father. And always, at all points, he's on a higher level of intelligence and everything else than Tristan. Tristan is his little sidekick, his servant almost. Yeah. And in prison, they got through prison. It was no hassle to be in a Romanian prison because Tristan was really laid back and he was the opposite. He was working out how to get them out of there. He was working out in his head and through his intelligence how to get them out. But he needed Tristan there as this calming influence in the cell with him. Like the narcissism is unbelievable.
Yeah, and it is very like Trump. I'm a genius, and where, I'm
the IQ
always
tests and everything.
Yeah, I'm always exceptional. And and then you answer your own questions. And you see Trump did that in that CNN town hall recently where he steamrolled the interviewer because the interviewer is looking for him to answer questions. What are you going to do with this policy? But he doesn't answer like that.
He doesn't have an answer.
He just says, I'm going to solve the Ukraine crisis in 24 hours.
Yeah.
And it's just stated. And that's what Andrew Tate does. He's not talking to every audience. He's talking to his own people. Like Trump is talking to people who like him and who are possibly going to be Republican. So Andrew Tate is talking to those people who want to see him in conflict with the BBC. Yeah. They're not looking for him to answer the questions logically or rationally.
And they probably don't necessarily share all his extreme views, but if they're anti-MSM and he's taken on the BBC, maybe all of a sudden they'll follow him for that reason alone because he's potentially going to take them on at his level of profile.
Yeah, he'll take another bunch of followers, from this anti-MSM. Now, interestingly, I find this very interesting, but he speaks about his religious beliefs, and he was atheist, and he says over 4 years he's gone from being atheist to being Christian to being Muslim.
Yeah.
And throughout the interview, he speaks about going to Dubai to raise his children. And I was thinking, wow,
here we go.
When is Dubai going to close its doors to these people, or what is it going to be left with if it continues taking them? It's like everybody who's in trouble with the law anywhere looks towards Dubai as a kind of safe refuge. Just play a little bit of this and you might hear him talking about that.
My ideal family life, even my ideal family, the way I live my life now, is very much more like a clan than a nuclear family. I like me, my girl, my kids, Tristan, his girl, his kids, my cousin, his girl, his kids. I like this idea of lots of people. I like that. I like that feeling. So a girl says to me, well, you don't want a family. Like, no, I want a family bigger than you want. I just don't want to just sit with you. I want a lot of people around me, and I think it's better for that. And I think it's better for the children especially also. I think they enjoy it more. But yeah, I've got the best brother on the planet. I truly do. And this is why I'm saying some of our best days of our lives are in jail.
I was going to ask you that. You guys live here in this compound. It's an amazing place. I was going to ask you, you kind of just answered it, but you foresee yourself living with your brother the rest of your life?
1,000%. 1,000%. I can't imagine not wanting to live with Tristan. If you want privacy, you have privacy, right? We have a big house. So it is what it is.
You're on one wing, he's on the other wing.
It is what it is. But I can't imagine him not being around. If there's a problem, I just shout his name.
So does he have children? He talks about raising children. Is this a futuristic thing, or
he's obviously planning for the future, but I don't think he has children anyway.
I don't think he does, though.
No, because he talks about the life he wants to live in this compound in Romania, and that he wants his woman to come and live with him, and he wants his brother. His brother will always live with him, apparently. So, and the brother's woman will come in, and then they've all these personal trainers, and their woman will come in, and all the children be raised together. It'd be fabulous for the children.
Yeah.
It's a little cult for them all. It's like, and he surrounds
Very-
himself with
yeah.
sycophantic individuals, including letting this interviewer in. Like these are just
Exactly.
people plumazing him. They're not putting it up to him. The BBC put it up to him, and now they're the enemy. Like, it's incredible. There's a touch of Jerry Hutch about him as well, growing the hair in prison. Did you notice that? He
Poor
went,
Jerry, don't be saying that about Jerry Hutch.
well, Jerry's got lovely hair compared to.
Yes, he says BBC was begging him for an interview. He has a little joke in another part of it. These interviews are all broken down, of course. He talks about his pronouns being she, her, and
That's an ironic
saying
thing,
he
isn't it? Isn't he
identifies
trying
as a
to?
woman. What's that about?
I think that's an ironic thing.
I think no, it's in an ironic thing. I mean, that's been a big focus of these guys. How they get a lot of traction is to do with trans issues. You know,
Taking on Dylan Mulvaney as well, and he had to go at Bud Light at the very start of the interview. I don't know if you noticed that the gifts that the interview brought in. The one of them was a bottle of Bud Light in relation to the controversy in the US. So, and he says, "Oh, I'm already a girl," in reference to his pronouns. I don't need to drink Bud Light anymore. Again, it's all contrived. It's all set up. Like, I mean, it's
He talks about in that you know, he thinks it's okay to be gay.
Yeah.
But he sort of draws the line there that trans people, and he talks about men chopping off their private parts, and he's not in agreement with that. And he's okay with people being men, but when they start trying to shake their private parts in children's
that's where he
faces,
goes,
then he has to step in.
He's the hero
He
for
has to be the
everyone
hero
then,
for the children.
He does say that actually, and he says, "Yeah, if you want to be gay, that's fine." He goes through a list of things, but you want to share, you want to flaunt your junk in front of my child. That's where I draw the line, and it's like this is the moral compass that he has created, and it's getting the followers despite all the other stuff that he said for the last 10 years about women and men and various other demographics. It's incredible that he's managed to pick up this following.
So these women who went out to Romania to the compound and who were in front of a camera and you know, these allegations have been made. I think the BBC have claimed to have spoken to a few of these women. These are obviously presumably very vulnerable women, you could only imagine, to do that. But is this what these criminal charges are relating to?
these are relating to 7 women in particular
Yeah.
who all ended up in the compound and were working on these webcams. So he's been charged with a human trafficking charge by the Romanian Directorate of Investigating Organised Crime, basically. And he was initially under investigation for human trafficking, but that's been stepped up again. So basically what they're saying, something along the lines of maybe or Kelly, that these women were out there, maybe had flown out of their own volition, but once they were there, they were controlled.
Held
in a
against
sort
their
of-
will.
Held against their will and directed to carry out this criminal enterprise. So it's a human trafficking charge, and that's the criminality he faces. Like, it's not,
And his brother as well.
and his brother as well.
Even though he says his brother did nothing and is just being scapegoated, he says about him.
There was attacks. There was one girl who said she was choked as well, and
Yeah, there is various.
allegations of rape as well. And
Well, one of them has made an allegation of rape to the BBC and has been interviewed as part of that, and that's what was put to him originally, and he denied strongly.
Now, he appears to have been feeling very confident before this happened, you know, because the interviews he did, the 19 hours cut down to 5 hours, whatever it was, throughout it, he talks about there's no charges. So the Romanians, what happened was last year, and first of all, he was taken down off social media. TikTok took him down, Instagram took him down, Facebook took him down, Twitter took him down, then Elon Musk took over and
swooped in.
stuck him back up again.
Yeah.
And he's allowed him. I mean, he's 5.4 million followers on Twitter. But he was arrested then by the Romanians in either November or December last year, December, I think. And he was placed in prison on remand with no charges being brought, and eventually was let out to live under house arrest.
Yeah.
But he talks about in these interviews, which presumably were recorded in the last week and before these charges were actually brought against him. He talks about there only being a few weeks left for the Romanians to bring those charges. He feels confident in it that he's not going to be actually charged, and that he's headed for Dubai. That's what
I think they're in their 6th extension now. The Romanian authorities are allowed 6 extensions of that house arrest, is what my understanding is, and they're currently in the final one. So He kind of sees himself as in the home stretch.
He saw himself, and now unfortunately for him, he's been charged. So
But I mean,
they've brought the charges forward.
it might be slightly different, of course, the criminal justice system in how we operate here. But always that thing of appearing confident and in control and one step ahead, playing, was it 4D chess or 3D chess when the others are playing? So that's always part of his persona, that he is a step above all these people and he's going to walk out. But it looks like a very, very serious investigation, and I wouldn't be, it's a very high profile case, and they look like they're determined to bring it. But he will always have to put that out. Not only with prison, it was easy for me.
So where does he put it after this? Because, what does he do now? He's charged, like most. Okay, so the podcasting world is a bit the Wild West mostly, because most of it isn't actually, it isn't legitimate media agencies that are behind a lot of podcasts. So they definitely don't abide by the rules of broadcast. But if we were looking at somebody like him who was charged with criminal offences, you'd wait until the court heard the cases, and, if he was acquitted, you'd be quite happy to interview him. But if he's guilty, he goes to jail, presumably. So where is he at? Does Elon Musk leave up his Twitter account here?
Well, he's not guilty of anything just yet. So I suppose it's it's a complicated thing, the social media thing, because they're operating obviously on an international basis in Twitter. There's plenty of people up there from, the Iranian state to Donald Trump is allowed back on or whatever. So they don't stop people just because they're facing criminal charges in almost any jurisdiction. Like Andrew Tate, probably even more so than Twitter and Instagram, he really found success on TikTok. I mean, TikTok, as the absolute explosion of TikTok over the last couple of years, he was really in on the ground floor. And that's really where they worked. And he was absolutely perfect for 30 or 40 second sound bites where he'd say something super outrageous every 30 seconds. So, and they really pushed that. That was a part of a strategy of them to get anybody who signed up to the Hustlers University had to share an Andrew Tate TikTok and all of that. But he's not on TikTok in the way he was, or they're certainly not promoting him. I don't know.
They've taken him down.
Yeah, and now sometimes, and sometimes obviously other people can put up TikToks.
Yeah,
and they don't, but they don't get pushed at you. Because I was opening TikTok at one stage, and every second or third video was Andrew Tate, and that's really how he became super famous, and not on Twitter as much. Given
that it's the only platform he has now, that's probably why he's up to 5.4 million.
Well, that's probably why, and also that's why he's gone back at the podcasts, because it's not a centralized thing, and people, it's a funny, I'd argue it's a bit of a Freudian or Faustian pact even between people like the BBC and Andrew Tate. Like, is Andrew Tate worthy of the BBC's investigation, or is he just a sort of supermassive troll who's had his day? Well,
you see, the BBC are looking for clickbait as well as everybody else. I mean, that's a fact.
They took the interview and got it.
They took the interview and got it.
Which I wouldn't. Obviously, we wouldn't. We do it as well.
There's no doubt about it. Of course, we would.
We maybe don't claim, these kind of.
We don't claim to have highbrow.
No, exactly. So there is a kind of
or any values.
I know my own teenage kids were seeing these Andrew Tate videos.
Yeah.
Right? And were they looking at them and thinking, I'm going to go out and get myself a woman and lock her in the basement? They were just thinking, oh, look, isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? And is he going to bring the collapse of Western society, or is he really just going to rip off a load of people, and in a really like anybody who calls their central money making thing Hustlers University?
Yeah.
Like, is he?
Well, I mean, like the fact that there was actually, concerns within the education system, and I mean, this wasn't just like invalid concerns. There was kids in schools who were making comments to female teachers, and the female teachers were quite concerned about it.
I'm not saying it's like, God knows he's a moron, and the stuff he's saying is mostly ridiculous. But sometimes, you wonder, do your own kids Do they just take on what they just look at a video and believe it?
I wouldn't
many
suggest-
don't because
they're not all taking it in.
They're
and
not all because they
not their
will
belief
also
system.
have
Still-
strong values
Yeah,
coming
and
from
they're-
the parent.
and they're
But you
still-
don't have that with every child.
you
Not
don't.
every child has that.
He knows that.
And sometimes there is, like, you know, on social media, there is there's very much a one stream of thought. And these guys who go against that current, they can really shoot out. You have people like Jordan Peterson, similar, and, you know, they have their moment and the moment passes. Do you know? I'm not saying Andrew Tate is anything. Like, to me, he's like a...
But he's a suspected criminal, is what he is.
Exactly. And that's why he deserves to be on Crime World.
Yeah.
I don't know if he deserves to be in...
I think I think, you know, with the BBC, I mean, you know, he is such a massive story that, I mean, I think that they probably have to kind of, like everybody else, go with, you know, what's in the public conscience and tackle it. And
I'd say he said yes to that because of who they are.
Yeah, and look,
I'd say 10
he
or 12.
said they were begging,
Yeah, I'd say dozens of companies
Yeah.
came into him, and I'd say he cherry-picked the BBC for what they represent. He doesn't have any respect for them as for their show or their presenter.
yeah.
But he wanted Andy Beebe to come in, sit down with him, and do this interview, and he can now claim that he took them down. Like that. It's all.
I'll argue against myself. I remember Donald Trump running for election and thinking, it's just a bit of a laugh, isn't it? Look at him. He's just he's just a big troll, and, you know, sure, nobody takes him seriously. And then, of course, he was elected.
Yeah.
So I'm generally wrong, but there's a bit of me that thinks, like, is it that dangerous, or is this guy just a loudmouth that's getting a bit of attention?
Well, I wouldn't suggest for a second that 12 million followers all hang on his every word, but there is a percentage that are believing in it, subscribing to it. And Hustlers University is gone, but he's got two other communities called The Real World and The War Room, and he is taking in money from individuals who have subscribed to this and want to learn from him. And whether or not you can say, I know you've said a few times that he's scamming them. I mean, he is giving them some advice, whether it's good advice or not.
Advice like buy cryptocurrency. I mean, cryptocurrency had its moment and then it's gone down. I mean, it's so like,
I'm not saying it's great advice, but I am saying that it like technically by the definition, he probably isn't. Scamming would be to not give anyone any sort of advice if they're paying a subscription. He is doling stuff out,
So are the Church of Scientology, you know?
And here's interesting, just from Newsweek, and just at this point where we're at, you know, this is interesting because this is his reaction to what's happened in Romania, to the charges being brought. He has had a major win in Romania as he battles for his freedom, he has said.
Yeah.
Okay. So he had faced accusations of human trafficking and rape, but prosecutors on Tuesday ruled to change the charges to trafficking in continued form. One more alleged victim was added to the case, bringing the total to 7. A spokesperson for Andrew and his brother Tristan said in a statement sent to Newsweek, the legal framework has been revised and altered to ensure an impartial investigation is upheld. In other words, they've had their first victory with the Romanian courts.
So
it is
Donald
extraordinary
Trump, that he's turned that on.
Yeah, and he will continue to do that, and he will continue to do that. Any individual like him, with the sense of self-worth that he has, with his belief that he can manipulate the media and he can manipulate everybody that comes into his sphere. Like, somebody like that is a dangerous character, especially when they grow in popularity. I mean, there's just no doubt about it that somebody with that kind of sense of belief that tells that many lies in such a sort of almost credible fashion.
Do you know, I'm not saying he's not dangerous. I actually think he could be, but it's how do you counter people that come out with these types of things? And sometimes the way in which people counteract them, it's just not going to reach the young men that are listening to him. Do you know? Like, how do you reach them people with the opposing point of view? And sometimes just say, oh, he's just a misogynist and he hates women. Like, those people don't listen to you. Do you know what I mean?
I think, in fairness, that, you know, if the BBC have gone to interview him, they probably are digging, and they probably do. They have spoken, they said, to 2 of those victims, and maybe those women aren't ready yet to come forward to give their interviews. Maybe they can't because of the pending court cases, but maybe their powerful testimony will be enough to change minds on him, and his destruction will be nearly a self-making because he will continue to deny any of these things happened. And sometimes when somebody stands into the witness box and gives evidence about something horrific happening to them, you know, the house of cards can just fall.
I wouldn't be too confident of him being taken out by these allegations going to court. If you look at what happens to Donald Trump in America, I mean, he just seems to be made. I know last week was a big deal, but like since before he was elected president, the allegations against him were absolutely disgraceful, and he just seemed to grow in popularity. So I'm not sure it will stick with a certain portion of his followers and the demographic. I think they're in for forever. But the problem is he's so young. He's got decades ahead of him potentially.
38.
So I mean, it's not like Donald Trump and he's an aging old man who might be going off into irrelevance. This, unfortunately, Andrew could be around for a long time. So countering his misogynistic
myself and Niall know how to take him down. Do you remember we had that discussion about how to take somebody down and how to take them out?
I think,
and we can't discuss who it was, but somebody, it's that kind of constant
keep tipping away.
But also I think it's some
and have one after the next coming forward, very powerful stories, but you have to keep
and also I think there is a bit of I think it's more painful to him to be seen as ridiculous and silly than it is to be seen as a threat to civilization. I think that's more undermining for somebody of that narcissistic kind of makeup. That's more undermining for him than. And sometimes it's. Yeah, I think he's all smoke and mirrors, I have to say. I don't think he'll be here forever. But again, I thought that about Donald Trump, and here he is.
Yeah. And you're quite often wrong.
I'm nearly always wrong. Nearly always wrong.
Only, except when he's right, of course.
Yeah. But even when I'm wrong,
But look, let's seriously keep an eye on this one and come back to it. And I wouldn't
it's an
mind
interesting
going out to
story.
Romania and having a look at it.
Yeah,
there's lots more to come out, especially as you said, if and when he goes to court, and if the women actually can go public and want to go public, it's going to be.
Well, there's 7 of them
there is
there
an
now.
interesting thing, even in terms of the criminal aspect of it, because he operated across countries like a lot of modern criminals, where he was based in Romania, but he was taking money across the world. He was exploiting these kind of legal loopholes, where he said about these webcam girls, and they were looking for money off people with sob stories. He said it might not be nice, but it's not illegal. So all of those kind of things, where it does expose a sort of how people struggle to police modern law enforcement through the internet. So there is all of that aspect to it, which is interesting as well as his Bugattis and all that sort of stuff, which I'm not even sure I'd know what a Bugatti is.
He wouldn't, I can tell you. He wouldn't have a clue.
God, I'd love to see you behind the wheel of a Bugatti.
Yeah.
Mr. Essex. I guarantee you, Andrew Tate.
My Toyota Corolla.
I guarantee you, Andrew Tate never has been inside a Toyota Corolla.
Or a pair of Essex.
Nor has he been inside a pair of Essex.
Really, I'm the anti Andrew Tate, aren't I?
I think you're our Andrew Tate, to be honest. Some of the opinions you have.
Right. Well, look, we'll come back to Andrew. I think he's going to be the next big name.
Talking point, all right, yeah.
All right. Thanks a mil.